Welcome back in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here, joined by Mike Gill now from 97.3 ESPN down the shore. Mike, welcome to the show, man. How you doing on this Wednesday morning?
Doing all right. Nice little bye week. No problems, right?
Yeah, no problems. And all the problems are problems that have nothing to do with the football field, it seems like, Mike, typically. So we'll start with the social media stuff because that's where we started, even though I don't want to talk about it. But, boy, I mean, has Mike Gill got a solution? I mean, these guys keep shooting themselves in the foot by going on, but how do you stop them?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an answer. No, I don't have a solution outside of you just saying, I think you said beforehand, you just basically say you're not allowed to. You put it in your contract. And we have situations now where the head coach of the Raiders liked a post that said, Devontae Adams or something to that. When you have the coach now getting involved in these things. Before, we're talking about the players doing asinine things. This is the coach of the team liking something. I've always been like, okay, listen, the Bryce Huff stuff, he scrubbed his whole thing. Like, you really going to take time out of your day to remove? I don't even know how to do that.
I don't know how to do that.
Right? Yeah, I don't even know how to do that. Like, if I wanted to remove every comment, like, I don't even know how to do that. So for these guys to take the time out of your day, what are your priorities, Bryce Huff? And maybe the answer as to why you don't have a freaking sack, tackle, pressure, hurry is that you know more about erasing and scrubbing your social media page than you do the defense that you're involved in right now. Now, maybe they're using him the wrong way, and maybe they're not. But if you are more interested in erasing and scrubbing your social media, then your priorities are out of line. Now, Darius Slay is a guy who has a lot of respect in that locker room. But I kind of look at it like in the middle of the season to be going on another show with a different team and talking about your own team. Yeah, your own teammate. It's kind of like, are you serious? Like, read the room, man. You didn't have a good game. Then you posted your stats out there. Okay, great. You once were great. Well, right now, in this moment, not so great. So read the room and say, you know what? I've had a great career, but I did not play well, and we are not playing well. I'm going to have to pass, Micah Parsons. Sorry.
Yeah, I thought it was a blatant lack of reading the room, just like you just said. I mean, look, the bottom line is the cat's out of the bag on social media. Like, I get what you guys are saying, but we're not going backwards. If anything, Mike, there's more coaches coming up that are going to be liking and sharing and deleting and all sorts of stuff.
Now, I am firing my coach if he's on social media.
I would too, but if that's why if you're the leader, though,
the coach one is. That's that's big. When I saw that, that's like, are you kidding me, Antonio Pierce?
To the point about Slay, he's got a C on his chest. You got to read the room. Talking about CJ Gardner, he cares. CJ Gardner-Johnson cares about social media. That's the reality of the world we live in as a leader and as a captain.
By the way,
you got to read that room.
You shouldn't care about social media.
Listen,
he does though, and like I said, that cat's out of the bag.
From August to hopefully February, your social media should be used for promoting your charities. Maybe if I'm the player of the week, something to that extent. Have somebody else running it for you. If you want to have a little off time from March, April, May, June, July to carry on shows, create a podcast, do a Twitch channel, show everybody that you could play a freaking video game. All right, great. But in season, have enough audacity to understand that people don't want to see these kind of things, and especially when you're not playing well. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, by the way, when he got signed, people were excited. People were like, okay, they made a move to bring in a guy that led the league in interception was here. This team struggled to create turnovers last year. This is a guy that can bring that in. He brings some personality to this team. And if your personality is now known more for your reaction on social media than it is on the field, say for one play that he made so far this year, that's a problem. And everything is manifesting, as this bye week gets here into They got problems here. There's problems there. There's problems there. There's problems here. You're in the 4th week of the season, and you've already got all these questions. And this league is too competitive. Everybody is right here. All it takes is one tiny little thing to move you from here to here. And if you're here and the other teams go here and that little problem takes you here, that's enough. And they have enough things going on right now that you're going to start sliding from the middle to the lower echelon real fast if you don't figure these things out. And the biggest one on top of the social media is the coach and the quarterback.
Yeah, well, I don't think the social media thing is a big problem in the sense of the football perspective of it, and that I think is the frustrating part for the coaches is that we missed 15 tackles. We got to fix this shit, and I think WIP had asked Nick Sirianni about Devin White and Levante David. He's out there, congratulating his buddy for making a play, and essentially what Nick said was, I got bigger things to worry about. And then this guy doesn't even play. Now, he didn't phrase it like that, but you could tell that was a sentiment. It's like, I got bigger. I'm trying to fix things on the field than worry about this nonsense. But this nonsense becomes a thing. That's all we're talking about, and it really is nonsense.
It's not necessary. Yeah,
it's it's self-inflicted. It's self-inflicted. That's the frustrating part, no doubt, from the coaches and the organization.
Hey, listen, I mean, this is at the biggest level. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is on the McAfee show,
which every week during the season,
which started out as a show like this. It was a YouTube show, and he was on the YouTube show every week, and then of course ESPN paid McAfee to bring the show over there, but. You got Aaron Rodgers, maybe the biggest star that's left in the league, outside of maybe Mahomes. I guess Mahomes probably has passed him, but he might be the second most recognizable name in your game. And he's on there weekly,
and constantly getting in trouble for stuff he does
exactly.
on there.
So this but these are all distractions that mediocre teams don't need to pull themselves out of mediocrity.
Very good. Very, very true.
Yeah, but it's not. And again, Micah has gotten in trouble in the past for speaking well about Lane Johnson, from Cowboys. So it's not like it's unique to the Eagles. This is a modern NFL problem.
No doubt.
And if I had a solution, I would. But I would give it, but I don't have one to stop these guys from doing it.
No,
it's ingrained. No. It's ingrained to them. It's important to them, as Xander said. It's very important to them.
Well, when you are a player in the league right now, and you see Travis Kelce and his brother getting how much for their podcast?
Yeah. Well,
how much? What did they get? $250 million? Or was it $25
million deal? They got
$100 million deal. You are saying, I want that deal. And it almost becomes, I can get paid more for doing things outside of my job than I can doing my job. And if all it takes is me going on there and being funny and talking and getting other of my friends to come on and talk, I can get that bag by doing that. And that becomes more appealing. So you're giving these guys, and Travis Kelce's an active player. And Jason was too when he started that thing. And it's like, it's okay for those guys to do it. Why can't I? I got plenty of buddies that want to come on my podcast, and we can just chop it up, and maybe I'll get paid too.
Yeah, not only were they doing it, Mike, the Eagles were promoting it. The NFL was promoting it. The whole billion-dollar entities were behind it.
The key to the Kelce's is they don't tend to get themselves into trouble.
It's true. And their brothers, it's a little bit of a different dynamic than Slay going on with Micah and clowning your teammate when you have a fucking awful defense and you can't stop a nosebleed. That's a bad look.
Yeah,
that's a bad look.
The point of the Kelce thing is more pop culture-y. They kind of are self-deprecating about their own performances and yada yada. Whereas I feel like everybody is trying to do something to kind of stick out and stand out to get that attention, so I can get recognized, so I can get that money. So I'm going to go get my buddy that plays on a different team. And maybe we could say something that will, and I don't know that that's subconsciously what they're trying to do. Like Micah Parsons, hey, let me go get to the fans. An Eagle and a Cowboy. Trey Thomas tweeted this out yesterday. I can never imagine Lito, Sheldon, Troy Vincent, Bobby Taylor going on DeMarcus Ware's podcast and talking about how shitty of a game Brian Dawkins.
Well, in all due respect, there was no such thing.
I get that. I get that. But my point is, for the fans, the perception is an Eagle and a Cowboy could never talk, and those days are over. Those days are over.
Those days are over.
The kayfabe, if you will, for the fans is those two should not be matriculating during the course of the season, and they are openly coming out.
It is. There. I'm glad you brought that up, because there is a pro wrestling feel to it, in the fact that people are now let in on the secrets. And you bring up kayfabe, for those who don't know, that means keep the act up in public, so you don't let the fans in on it. There is a lot of kayfabe here. Like, guys used to be friends in the past. It just wasn't as in your face.
Yeah.
And the rivalries were, more, legitimate. But even back then, there were a bunch of guys who were just friends.
Look at the Mets Braves game the other day. They're playing a doubleheader, and people wanted the Mets to knock the Braves out because they hate each other. Not only did they not knock them out, after the game was over, the two teams came out in the field and partied together. I mean, these days are over, man.
Yeah.
So, right. It's like the rivalry aspect of it is a fan, which should live on, by the way. Like
it's fan-driven. It's fan-driven.
Right. You need these fan-driven rivalries where the fans hate the Cowboys so much. But sadly, the players don't have that same feel about the Cowboys as the fans do. I've always been more partial to Eagles-Giants. I feel like that one should have always been the higher up. I feel like we give the Cowboys, who haven't been relevant in my 30 years, we give them too much. Well,
it's the old kindling is not a rivalry to fire. I mean, the Eagles have dominated the Giants. The Giants have been so bad for so long. I think
that's the fun part about it. That's the fun part about it, is when the one rival just constantly kicks the crap out of the other one.
Yeah.
And
the Parcells days, it was legit. It was a legit rivalry when the Giants were good. And even for some Tom Coughlin as well. But
Micah Parsons is another, one. He's out there every week, and it seems like all he's doing is complaining about everything other than the fact that his team and performances aren't good enough.
I said he got in trouble from Cowboy fans for saying how good Lane Johnson was. I mean, it's not just the Eagles, but yeah. Let's get off this, because it's not going anywhere. It's not.
Go to the root of the problem. The defense sucked on Sunday, Mike. Yeah. What's your
defense?
Take?
Before we get to that, I want to get, because you brought up Hurts and Nick Sirianni. Now there's this, because of, what was it, 3 or 4 words about messaging.
Yeah,
and
we have our moments.
Yeah, so 4 words. We have our moments. And those 4 words, Mike Gill, indicate the giant disconnect again between the head coach and the quarterback.
Yeah, I've been pretty steadfast on my show here that I have to believe that the front office, the ownership group, talked to both of them either together or separately individually and asked each other, Nick, you and Jalen have problems. Can you guys coexist? Can you get along? And if Nick says, love Jalen, he's my guy. Okay, fine. You don't want to get fired. Let me go ask Jalen. Jalen, do you have a problem playing for Nick Sirianni? Because we have to make some decisions this offseason. And if you have a problem with him, you got to let us know now. No, Nick's my guy. All right, let's move on. If that discussion was not had, then you got bigger problems. And the answers that we're getting and the body language that we're getting is suggesting that maybe that conversation was not had, or, like many things have evolved and changed to where the quarterback is now to the point where he is not trusting in the direction of where this offense was supposed to be and where it's gotten. Now, some of that could be injury driven. I don't have the guys that I thought I was going to have, and that is frustrating. I can understand that. Man, this is frustrating. I'm throwing the ball to Paris Campbell, who doesn't belong on an NFL field at this stage of his career. Okay, that's frustrating. So are we at the point where he's just frustrated by the injuries? Or are we at the point that he's frustrated by the offense? I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah. Well, and that ends up that's another question. Like, you have a whole group of people, and this is not, it was very predictable, but I go back to the front office again, and this is more Jeffrey Lurie than Howie Roseman. Boy, this is a bad setup, Mike. This is a bad setup. It was obvious to me it was a bad setup from day one. And now you have, when things go well, Kellen Moore's running the offense. When things go poorly, Nick Sirianni's running the offense. People are going down that route.
Nick didn't help himself by saying,
he opened that. That was a mistake. I said it the moment he said it. I said it. That dude, don't bring that up, because then you got to get into the context of game planning, and Jeff Stoutland's involved, and Jason Michael's involved, and Aaron Moorhead's involved, and people don't understand that.
I'm going to do something that has never happened in the history of the Jeff Stoutland era, I don't think. But Stoutland has to evolve a little bit here and put his best guys out there. The hell with this, I don't want to move multiple guys. Get the best 5 guys on the field. If you got a guy who's getting his ass kicked out there all day, now I get it. Another guy got hurt, so they had to move Dickerson. But they did
move, which was weird, by the way. But still haven't gotten an answer as to
right. So Becton at right tackle this week, Steen at right guard. We're going to put our best 5 guys out there. You got Fred Johnson, who was a nice story. He got his name mentioned 37 times by Sirianni the day after, and it was a great story. But guess what? He got his ass kicked out there the other day, and that's not fair to this offense. Put your best 5 guys out on the field, not this, well, I don't want to move 2 guys. The guy's a right tackle. He can handle moving for a week if he has to. These are professionals. This whole we don't want to move guys thing is antiquated. Let's move past this and get the best 5 guys on the field to give my team the best shot to perform. They gave themselves no chance to perform because they got sacked 6 times. Johnson had 13 pressures. I mean, that's comparable to the night that who was the guy who played? Was that who played left
King
tackle?
Dunlop? You going King Dunlop on me?
You had a turnstile at right tackle the other day, and you can't have that. So when you are down guys like they are skill position wise, I got to give my offensive line the best 5 guys out there. And I'm sorry, Mekhi Becton can handle playing right tackle for one night if you needed him to.
Fair point, Mike. I want to ask you, because I know you have a good show, and you also have a interaction with your listening audience. I've noticed a little bit of a change in the tune of many when it comes to the quarterback Jalen Hurts. How do you feel about Jalen Hurts now? 2-2 into the bye, he's second in the league in turnovers. I don't want to beat him up too much. He's missing AJ, Devontae, and Lane last week, but I've noticed that many of the fans are losing patience on Jalen Hurts. I'd be curious to know if you think your listeners are as well, and your thoughts on the quarterback through 4 weeks of this season.
Oh, yeah. I definitely think that people are starting to say maybe – and I said this from the get-go. I don't know if I said it on your guys' show, but they were in a terrible spot with him. They had to pay him based on his best and didn't have to factor in his worst. He played a year before that, and that didn't get factored into the contract because his most recent thing was the best. Well, they had to make a decision. They couldn't let him go into the season under the contract he was in, and it was, hey, he just took us to the Super Bowl, so now we have to pay him based on that 1 year. That never works out. You can't say this is the absolute, and I think he gets that money, and like all these guys, when you get paid, the scrutiny gets higher, and he is not on that level. He is not on the level. I remember, John, it might have been 2 years ago we were doing this show, whatever it was, and you said, well, if he gets this, he's going to get $25 million a year. And I said, $25 million a year for Jalen Hurts? And you said that's the going rate for a quarterback right now. Well, he didn't get 25. He got significantly more than that. And listen, he is not that guy. Never was he this guy. What makes him this guy, and you have to give him credit for this, is that he can play with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But when those guys aren't there, who are you? What are you? Matt LaFleur these guys are playing with half a deck sometimes, and the team is competent and competitive. The Rams, they're playing without Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. Now they're 1-3, but they went to San Francisco, played San Francisco and won a game. You've got to be able to find ways when you're missing. Now, listen, I'm not going to say, if you told me at the beginning of the year, hey, the Eagles offense this year is Paris Campbell, Jahan Dotson, Fred Johnson, Johnny Wilson, then my answer is this team's not going to be very good. But for a couple of weeks, I've got to find ways. And the guy who is the constant right now is the quarterback, and they are not good enough. Now, that's not all his fault. But the criticism is you have a guy who's a good player, not a great player. This is the Andre Iguodala thing. When you get that contract, you're supposed to be great, and a lot of times you're just good. And sadly, that comes with signing that deal, which, listen, all these teams are in this problem where they have to make this decision, and there's no other place to go.
Trevor Lawrence.
Everybody. Daniel Jones. None of these quarterbacks are worth what they're getting paid, but the teams are backed into a corner, and the Eagles were backed into the ultimate corner. This guy just took us to the Super Bowl, and he was really the best player on the field in that Super Bowl, and he was second in the MVP voting. What are we supposed to do? But I think in that room, they would say, he is not worth this deal. Look at the guy he was in 2022, and look at the guy he was in 2023. Somewhere along the line, he's going to come back to the middle. He might not be 2022, but he's certainly not 2023. He's somewhere in between, and that's okay. But that contract puts the bullseye on you that you need to be 2023 or better, and he's not.
Boy, I think the thing that complicates it is what you started that. And by the way, I agree with you. But what you started with, I think if people get the contracts complicate things so much. And the fact that it's the cost of doing business at that particular position. When the Eagles signed Jalen Hurts for a very short period of time, I think about 2 weeks, maybe less than 2 weeks, he was the highest paid player in the history of football. Now he's behind Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff, Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott. And guess what? When the other guys start coming up, he'll be behind them. Patrick Mahomes is behind Jalen Hurts and all those guys. It was his turn. So if I say, where's Jalen Hurts in, the top quarterbacks in the NFL, I'm going to say in a good year, he's probably, 9, 8, 9. In a bad year, 11, 12. Right now, he's the 9th best contract. He gets paid what he should get paid. But that complicates because it's so much money. That's just the cost of doing business at that position.
The cost of doing business. It's absolutely. But here's
but even contract out of it, you need to have a quarterback in the league in the NFL that elevates you. Because John, you talk about it all the time. The war of attrition is a bigger part of winning in this league as anything.
Oh,
so if you don't have a quarterback that can elevate when everything is not perfect, that's going to be in the bullseye, and it's going to limit how much your team can do.
And it's way early.
You get seasons like 22 a lot, where the starting 22 on game one is the same as it is in the Super Bowl. That's not going to happen often.
Here's the question people need to ask themselves. Would you rather have Jared Goff with everything the Eagles have? Would you rather have?
It's hard at this point to say no to that.
Yeah, Jared Goff.
Jared Goff.
I'm going to make it harder because it's a short sample size.
Jared Goff gets ridiculed because he was the number 1 pick, and then Wentz got off to a great start, and then Wentz kind of was like, "Oh, the better." Goff has just kind of persevered through a career of having the stigma of being the number 1 pick and not being a.
And he's already been to Super Bowls, by the way, Super Bowl and NFC championship games. So
he has taken a down rotten franchise and made them believable. You believe that the Lions can win a Super Bowl now, and you can only believe a team can win the Super Bowl if you believe in the quarterback. You don't think a team can win ultimately in the end, you'll say, the quarterback's not good. I like the team, but I don't like the quarterback. He has made people believe in that team. So I think Goff has kind of push through the thoughts of being a failure as a number one pick or not.
What you thought I mean, he just came off the perfect, he's 18 for 18. The ball didn't hit the ground. So maybe he's not the best example, but somebody who hasn't had the playoff success, Justin Herbert.
I'll tell you what, I'm watching games all weekend, and I asked myself, watching Monday Night Football, and I went to West Virginia, so maybe there's bias. I'm watching Geno Smith sling it all over the place. And I'm thinking,
one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL.
Well, and listen, and Geno was another guy. He was supposed to be the number one pick. He slides to the second round. He starts with the Jets. He fails there. He bounces all over the place. You're telling me you watched that guy on Monday night and didn't think, man, this guy's better than who we have? You didn't think that watching him play Monday night?
Well, anybody watching the guy I've been focused on is Sam Darnold because of the start.
Sam Darnold's another one. And let me tell you, I had Colin Thompson does my show every Tuesday who played with Sam.
Yeah,
he swore up and down, this kid can play. He just needs to be in the right spot. He's with the Jets, a disaster. He said he did not get the right coaching in Carolina, and he was a disaster. He went to San Francisco and did what I recommend all these quarterbacks. Now, some are outliers.
That's why I was on Sam Darnold.
And learned. But this is where the coach and the quarterback and the coaching you get from that guy matters. And Darnold has the skill set. He has the ability. He was the number 2 pick in the draft for a reason. And now you're seeing, I said the other day, Minnesota's undefeated. If you don't believe in that team, what is it about that team you don't believe in? Because they've got plenty of weapons. They've finally got a half-competent offensive line. Their defense is pretty good. I'm not saying it's great, but it's pretty good. The only thing you would say is, I don't know if I believe in the quarterback. But if you think Sam Darnold can play, that team's for real then, because they got everything else they need.
And it's a small sample size. I think he can play, but, he might show up in London. They got the London game this week, and he might, you're waiting for the other shoe because you've seen it in bad situations. To Mike's point, though, this is a good situation. He's got Justin Jefferson. He's got Jordan Addison. Absolutely. And by the way, T.J. Hawkinson's coming. He doesn't even have T.J. Hawkinson.
And he's got a good staff around him. That's a big
Kevin
key.
O'Connell.
These guys walk into a situation where they don't have great people around them. Caleb Williams walking into Chicago.
No, that's
not a great offensive situation for him. And you're seeing him, kind of struggle a little bit. That doesn't mean he can't be great or isn't great, but you've got a defensive-minded head coach there, and you've got him in a system that's probably not maximizing what he is. Jaden Daniels, hey, Cliff Kingsbury, you're an offensive mind. You take this kid and run with your offense. And this guy's flourishing. A lot of this is how many, you look back over the years, if Tim Couch went to Philly with Andy Reid instead of going to Cleveland and Donovan McNabb, what happens to Tim Couch? Maybe he's got his number. Maybe he's number 5 that will always love you. Who knows?
No, I'm with you. The situation has a lot to do with it with quarterbacks. At Mike Gill Show, make sure you follow.
I was a big Donovan fan, so I didn't want Donovan to. I love
that. Worked out well for the Eagles. The Eagles made the right decision on the.
Well, they didn't have a decision. The decision on Couch was made for them.
Well, no, but Ricky Williams, that at the time, people were hyper.
Yes, little known fact about me: I was the intern at WIP that had to call the Dirty 30.
Oh my God! I apologies. All right, that's a lot. That's like admitting youthful things that happen to you. And you've overcome it. You've overcome it.
Yeah, that was my job as the intern. Here are 30 people that won an opportunity to go to the draft. Can you please call them and make sure they're at the bus at this time Saturday? It was like a Saturday back then, I think.
Yeah.
So Friday afternoon, I'm in the promotions office. Hey, this is Mike Gill from WIP.
Flashbacks and
congratulations, you're one of the. Yeah, you're one of the Dirty 30, and they weren't called the Dirty 30, but you're one of the 30 people that have been selected to go on this draft bus.
It's amazing, so many, and they've lasted for so long after making one of the worst decisions in the history of mankind. Nobody put 2 and 2 together.
Well, to circle to the Jalen Hurts stuff, Xander, in this town, we talk about it a lot. we prefer personality over performance. Buddy Ryan is great, and Andy Reid sucks. Right? That's the way the fans think in this town. And Jalen Hurts' personality is not one that you're like, I love this guy. He is not the kind of guy that is.
Well, everybody loved him when he won, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was still like this feeling of like.
And by the way, because people say I criticize the fans too much. By the way, the vast majority of fans in Philadelphia know that Andy Reid is a better coach than Buddy Ryan. The vocal ones, the most vocal ones are the ones we hear from, Mike.
I know,
and they're the ones who, you know, they're emotional, and that's why they do it. The average fan isn't engaging because they're not insane. I'm not saying everybody that engages is insane, but what I'm saying is, Andy Reid's going at first ballot Hall of Famer. The vast majority of people understand that Andy Reid is a better coach than Buddy Ryan.
Well, yeah, listen, and I bring this up on my show. We criticized Nick Sirianni. I think he deserves some of it, but ultimately, I don't think we take into account the guy got a team to the playoffs that had no business being in the playoffs his first year. He took a team to the Super Bowl. He then had a 10-1 team. There's some good that Sirianni has as a coach. What is that? But at the same time, you have to take it with a grain of salt. The criticism sometimes is that this fan base wanted Andy Reid fired because they thought he stunk. They thought he wasn't good enough to be the coach of this team.
Well, the coaching part of it is they put way too much emphasis on the coaching. Like, you know, and you're setting yourself up for disappointment when you think you've worked it up in your head that Kellen Moore's going to scheme open Paris Campbell and Johnny Wilson and receivers like that. It doesn't work like that. It's the players. It's the players first, and I preach it all the time on this show. But yeah, the ball to the coaching staff. Well, why can't you scheme Paris Campbell open?
Well, the same can be said though, John, for the defensive side, you know.
Well, I will say, Xander, somebody asked, I think it was a super chat earlier, that, you know, when you have 15 missed tackles, were you schemed properly? You were in position to make the tackle. You didn't make the tackle. So, and if you ask, like yesterday, I said to Colin Thompson, you're an offensive player, Colin. He played tight end. What's a missed tackle the result of? And he said they're tired. That's why you miss a tackle. You're tired. You're worn out. And, you know, he said, look, you can't.
It's 110 on the field.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about fundamentals. These guys are professional football players. They know how to fucking tackle.
Well, listen, Xander, we think that because we were taught how to tackle. You go watch a junior football league practice. They can't tackle. They're not allowed to tackle in those practices.
No.
The parents are scared out of their mind to let the kids play football, number one. So when they are on the field, they're not allowed to tackle each other. This is starting at 7, 8, 9. They don't tackle at all at that level anymore.
Yes, you're right.
So now they can't practice at any level. You're not allowed to hit anywhere. These practices, you can't do anything. So yeah, in our mind, it's funny. My TV screen has a like by Antonio Pierce. They're showing that on the screen again. My God. But in our mind, you're at practice and you're working on wrapping and driving someone to the ground. There's none of that. I said to Colin yesterday, how does a coach hold you, Colin, if you're late for practice or you fall asleep in a meeting or you're late to a meeting? How are you held accountable? They're not running Oklahoma drills out there. They're not doing gassers and wind sprints until they puke. You know, those days are done. How do they get? They get fined $5,000. Okay, to a player, to us, $5,000 doesn't sound like he's saying to a player at $5,000. Well, for a Colin Thompson level player, right? For a Colin Thompson level player, $5,000 is a big deal. But guess what? Colin Thompson ain't late for a practice.
I know.
You know, he's there on time, ready to report. It's the other guys that you're the top of the level rosters that you're saying.
Well, you know, this is a bigger problem when you talk, and Big talked about, Big is the most old school of old school guys you can find in the NFL right now. And he was talking about the tackling stuff. And, you know, he was asked, how do you fix it when you don't practice tackling? And he's answering it. And I'm thinking to myself at the moment, I'm I'm thinking about society as a whole because I'm a weirdo and this is how I think about things. And I'm like, boy, how did we get here?
Well, it's like, listen, I had the same thought you did is they don't tackle at any level in practice. We just assume, like Xander said, you're a professional, you tackle. Where did these guys ever practice? Where did they ever tackle? Now we're getting guys into the league who have gone through a generation of they never tackled. They didn't tackle in practice. I'm telling you right now, the junior leagues, the junior leagues where we are, they cannot tackle. They're not allowed to do anything.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so high school, they're not tackling. No. College, they're not tackling. So they're not tackling. You know, the flag football leagues, they're 7-on-7 leagues all over the place. You ain't tackling there, that's for sure. But you look at some of these tackles, these guys run with their shoulders, heads down, and they just try to run and hit you hard enough that you lose your balance and fall. There's no wrapping. There's no driving. You can't do that in practice anymore.
Yeah. Mike, last question for me, man. This team is 2-2 going into the bye. I don't know why it feels like it's 0-4. What's your biggest concern on this team coming out of the bye? I mean, we talked about the offense. Is it the defense? What are a couple things that you're looking at? Like, this is going to be an issue. This team has to fix this or they're not going anywhere.
Well, I said, we're 4 games in, and you look at all these teams. You watch you watch a team play 2 games, and you're like, the Saints, their offense is really good. Then you watch them play 2 more games, and you're like, maybe their offense isn't all that good. Right. So there are no absolutes after 4 games. We talk about how this is the preseason. Well, now we're getting into October where the preseason of the regular season is kind of ending, and you're coming out of a bye. If coming out of the bye and they get Brown, Smith, and Lane back, and their offense is still having some issues, 2 to 3 weeks down the road, then I think you can look at the offense and say, all right, what the heck's going on here? Because, they have enough talent offensively that shouldn't be an issue. It's the defensive side of the ball. It's where are they going to get pass rush? Where? And if you can't get that consistently week in and week out, you're constantly going to be having discussions on Monday of can't get stopped, can't get off the field. Now, some weeks you do and some weeks you don't, but you can't consistently do it. And if you can't consistently do it, you're going to constantly be in a situation where you're going to have to outscore teams 35-28. They should have the offense to be able to do that, but that's not a recipe for a Super Bowl, which is ultimately what everybody wants. So I think the biggest question is moving forward. The offense should take care of itself, you hope, with getting healthy. But where are they going to get pass rush with this team? I don't see where they get consistent pass rush with the current roster they have. That's the biggest problem.
Hopefully not going to be Bryce Huff, Mike.
Doesn't seem that way.
I didn't like the Huff signing when they made it, and I like it less now. So
John, I got to be honest. John convinced. I was thinking Huff was going to be.
Yeah, I was high on.
John convinced me. I did Birds 365 every day in the off season. Yeah. John had me fired up for Bryce Huff.
Well, I'm in the Rich Cimini camp. I'm like, I saw the guy play well at the NFL level.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get why you said it for
sure.
Hey,
maybe they're using him wrong, and that's a possibility. But I don't know. To me, he looked like a one-trick pony. That to me,
but that's fine. But use that trick. I know,
but this is how I described it on my show. Is Bryce Huff was a nobody who came out of right field, undrafted, and all of a sudden he has 10 sacks in his contract year. You know what teams are doing that are playing the Eagles? They sign a 51. Who the hell is this guy that just signed a 51? Let's go watch what the hell he's doing.
A lot of interest, Mike. A lot of interest.
Well, I'm not saying he didn't have a lot of interest, but I'm saying teams that are getting ready to play the Eagles this year, seeing a guy signing a $51 million deal who comes out of nowhere and gets 10 sacks, I'm saying, let me watch this guy on tape and see what he's doing. Maybe I didn't pay enough attention to a guy I never heard of before. And there you go. You get a guy who doesn't have a whole heck of a lot in the repertoire that we've now studied a little bit more.
In fact, one of the teams that was trying to sign him was Minnesota, and they lost out and got Jonathan Grenard, who's got, I think, 4 or 5 sacks.
Yeah.
They assessed that Huff was better than Jonathan Grenard. And maybe he is, maybe he isn't. He hasn't been this year. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, always. But there are a lot. I think there's that narrative that the Eagles went out of nowhere. Nobody else was given break. The people in New York think the Jets were insane for letting them go.
Yeah.
And
I'm not saying that the Eagles came out. I'm just saying he came out of nowhere. Huff. he was a guy that was undrafted. You know,
yeah,
like
he wasn't a big name. I understand what you're saying. He didn't come up through the ranks as a big pass rushing name. I get what you're saying.
No, well, he was undrafted, but that gets into the TJ Edwards replay. I mean, undrafted guys can turn into good players, but that's another story. We've kept you too long. I apologize. At Mike Gill Show X platform.
You know, I don't wear my glasses for this segment, so I can't see or read it. I have no idea what time it is. I can't see the clock on my screen.
Yeah, we kept you late. 9:08. 97.3 ESPN, the Sports Bash.
I apologize for this light line behind me today. I've been trying to get in front of it.
That's right. It looks good. It's illuminating you as you make your fantastic.
You have more gravitas because you look agreed. The skies are illuminating you. Make sure you listen to the Sports Bash locally, ESPN South Jersey. Mike does a tremendous job, 2 to 6. I'll be on there later if you don't get enough of us. Thanks, Mike.
All right, guys. See you, everybody.
Mike, thanks, man. See you. There's Mike Gill joining us on Birds 365. Great stuff from Mike.
We didn't get much to the defense because we were talking.
We got to do it a little bit at the end, and kind of makes me wonder, John, the Bryce Huff stuff, because and I agree with you where you're like players first. But I wonder, if Bryce Huff did get signed in Minnesota, would he stink this bad, or would Brian Flores have him playing?
No, we wouldn't, because Brian Flores would.
Right. So is that a case though of it's not the player first, it is the coaching?
Well, when I say players first, your job as a coach is to take players a little bit farther. Nick talks about it than where they can get on their own.
Yeah, and I get it's not going to be a blanket across all.
No, you have to have the raw talent. I think the problem with Bryce Huff here is that Vic is trying to turn him into a 3-down player by hell or high water to justify the contract. And I think if he were in Minnesota, and you'll never know because he's not. Right. I think Brian Flores, the type of guy he is, and you can watch him, he's going to utilize what he has, and he's going to utilize the one trick. And I think if the Eagles scale back to that, you'll see a better Bryce Huff. But I don't see any evidence they're going to scale back to that. They already do it to a certain extent, certain players. They have a bunch of pass rushers. Jihad Ward's a perfect example of a guy. He doesn't do much else, but he uses them. So I mean, there's evidence that he'll use that type of player. Now, if you sign him to 50, maybe the same thing happens there, and they say, well, he's got to be a more inclusive part of the defense. You don't know how this stuff is going to shake out, and no volume, no situation is the same. So that's one of the things I always preach against. Just because somebody's good somewhere else doesn't mean they're going to be good in your system, in your scheme, the way you're using them. And that's evidence. Forget about Minnesota was trying to sign him. Already you see it on paper. He played well for the New York Jets as a one-trick pony. He already did it. Right. And for people that say it was 1 year, it wasn't 1 year. It was 2 years. And the pressure percentages were off the charts for 2 years.
I guess the 1 year was just a double-digit sack. Yeah. But he played solid for 2 years.
Yeah. And, well, as a pass rusher. And he didn't do anything else, which is legitimate. If you're trying to evaluate him as a 3-down player, it's legitimate to bring up he never did anything else. But it's also legitimate to say, well, he was a really good pass rusher. And he was a really good pass rusher, not in college, at the NFL level. So something's wrong. And maybe it's Bryce. It's part Eagles' fault, part Bryce Huff's fault.
Yeah. Well, I did see the Baldy thing. I mean, you mentioned that to me earlier in the week, and a couple people in the chat are mentioning it. It is a little bit, it might be a little bit of a case of them just. I think what you said is perfect. They're trying to justify the contract by making him a 3-down player, and it's taking away everything that he did good in the process. And now he's, basically worthless to the defense through 4 games.
He has been to this point, which has got to be a disappointment. And maybe they'll figure it out in the bye, and maybe they'll scale it back. But it's not looking good right now. There's no way to frame it in a positive direction right now.
Yeah, no. John, real quick, and I don't want to get back into this because we talked about it enough today with the whole Slay stuff. But what's the Eagles' schedule this week with the bye? Like, are they in the NovaCare complex at all this week, or is Slay and CJ Gardner-Johnson going to be away from each other for a week before they're
well, they're going to. I don't think. I think they're not going to fight.
No, I know, but I do think. Look, like I said, and we talked about it, CJ Gardner-Johnson's he's an interesting fella. I mean, he's not. He gives a shit.
He is.
Yeah.
Yes,
so.
They have to have.
Saying, hey, Darius, it's okay. I still love you. I think there might be. I don't think it's going to be big, but I think they're going to talk for sure.
They were already in the building this week. The team, they're not practicing. You have to have collectively bargained. You have to have 4 consecutive days off. You have to have Saturday and Sunday off. So usually most teams do it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You can do it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We'll have a better indication of that when the Eagles get back next week, but not a lot going on. But yeah, they had meetings, and I obviously have the discussion. Don't be an idiot on your little mini vacation. A lot of guys go away. A lot of guys go home. A lot of guys take those mini vacations. So yeah, I mean, they'll be off over the weekend and 4 consecutive days, but yeah, I don't think there's going to be any fisticuffs or any
steel cage match like coming like Slager.
Well, they're going to have to deal with Dom if they do that. So
yeah.
No, I mean, I think it's much more important that they learn how to tackle. And I don't learn. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you learn how to tackle when you don't practice tackling. And like I said, I got into that a little bit with Mike. How did we get here, man? Like, where is the common sense in society? I mean, nobody, to my knowledge, nobody is making people play professional football. Adults play professional football. It's a violent sport. It's a dangerous sport. I've always had this conversation. I respect people who tell me they want to ban football. I respect those people because it's too dangerous. Irv Muchnick, I always say, the author, has that conversation with me, and I go, all right, let's have it. I disagree because I think you should be able to make your own decisions as an adult. But we should be able to stipulate as a society, guess what? If you play this game, you're going to get hurt. You're going to get banged up. You're going to get injured. If you play the game the way you're supposed to play the game, they don't. And you're sitting there asking Vic Fangio, and it's a very good question. It's a very legitimate question. How do you fix tackling when you don't practice tackling? And poor Vic has got to answer that question. And that's why I always say, my buddy Seth Joyner, it's like Seth always goes the old school route. And I have tremendous respect for Seth. But it's irrelevant what you did because they can't do it. Like, it's irrelevant. They're not allowed to do what you did as an old school player.
Right.
I mean, is it worth having the discussion?
They got to be better than 15 missed. I get it. There's got to be somewhere in the middle that we can meet, though. I mean,
but how do you practice tackling? That was the question. How do you practice?
No, you don't. I guess you don't. I mean, you're right.
And basically, you look at film and you run tackling cycles in practice, and you go up and you talk about technique and form and what you're supposed to do, and then all of a sudden, here comes Derrick Henry at you at 21 miles an hour. Well, good luck. Good luck.
Good luck with that one. Real quick, John, we got a super chat from earlier about the Slay stuff. Abe says, if Z was clowning you, J-Mac, wouldn't that affect you? And I think his point is that, bad look.
I can't control. I've said a million times. I've learned so much about social media. I used to clap back against many more people than I do today. Now, because I've learned over the years, look, this person or this person is not interested in a real conversation. They are just trying to clown you. It's human nature to get upset by it. I used to get upset by it a lot more than I do today.
Yeah, but that's different than the leader of your defense, right, doing it to you.
It's the same thing. It's human nature. Well, I'm answering the question. If you clown me, which you feel free to do on the show. Everybody does it. I mean, but of course, if it hits a sore spot or whatever, or you're having a bad day, it can happen to anybody. That's why I say stay off. Stay off if you're an athlete, because you get it times a million. I get it times of much more than the average person. Compared to an athlete, they get it way more than me. So it incrementally goes up. And it ain't fun. It ain't fun when somebody's being a jerk to you.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's two ways you can handle it. And you give a troll air, and they're just going to keep going and going and going. If you ignore them, if you make it blatantly clear they're not serious people, it's the better way to go. It would be nice if people would be, cordial to each other. But that's not the real world.
Yeah, the problem is Slay invited more, exponentially more amount of those trolls, to his own teammate by what he did as a captain. And I think that's where the problem really lies. I mean, I get it. We can argue about social and all this bullshit and trolls and everything like that. But you're a leader, man. And it's 2024.
Darius Slay is only a captain because his teammates voted him to be a captain.
Well, no, I'm not.
That should shut everybody down about the captain.
I know, but as a captain, don't you think that warrants a different version of understanding the room? Of when you're on Micah Parsons' podcast, yeah, you're right. Once you put the mic up, you're making a mistake, but you don't have to sit there and fucking laugh at your teammate. Whether you said anything wrong or not is not the point.
Has anybody ever seen one interview from Darius Slay? He giggles the whole freaking time.
It's true.
I mean, he wasn't laughing at CJ Gardner.
No, but that was the optic of it, and I think that's
that's the optic of people who don't understand. An Eagles fan should understand. They talk about Slay all the time. He's not serious, and he should be more serious. And they want, if you're not serious, they want you to be more serious. If you are serious, like Jalen Hurts, they want you to be less serious. You can't win in these circumstances. So my only advice to the Eagles is stay away from it, but they're not going to listen to that advice.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's get to our commercial break. We have BLG coming up next. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Hit that like button, everybody, for us. Appreciate all the people in here. We got a great crowd. As always, appreciate all of you guys. Appreciate our members and appreciate our 2 super chats today. So thanks, everybody. Hit that like button. We got Brandon Lee Goutman from Bleeding Green Nation coming up next. Before I get to the break, let me tell you guys about our great friends at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa and check out that promo, 150% sign-up bonus on that first deposit. And then you get 125% on your second and third deposits if you use the promo code YouTube 150, and that's all up to $2,000 back. So you can deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. They have the fastest payouts in the industry, 24/7 customer support, and they're the proud partner here on Birds 365 and Jacob Sports. So thanks, everybody, and make sure you go check out BetUS. Let's get to our commercial break. 3 minutes. We'll be back with BLG from Bleeding Green Nation.
If you missed any of today's show on the Jacob Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.